Your Royal Highnesses, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of CABU, a very, very warm welcome to this evening's event. I think it is extremely timely, and I'm extremely grateful to Islamic Relief for all their work and for putting this evening's event on and to bringing together such a wonderful audience. And of course, it's Islamic Relief, as you know, is based in Birmingham, and I'm sure Fox News will be following up on this. But that is just one element of what we have seen in an extraordinary wealth of misunderstanding of the Arab world, of the Islamic world, that you even get somebody who is billed as a serious commentator on the region to describe our second city in such terms. And it's against this backdrop that we discuss how to deal with the region. But Islamic Relief does do fantastic work, sadly very, very much needed. And for CABU, they're a valued partner, not least for their advocacy and work in conflict resolution. And conflict resolution is extremely important in our work because, of course, it's chilling to think of the number of Syrians who've died in that conflict over the last 4 years. The 27 Syrians who have literally frozen to death since March 2011. The 13 million people displaced in Iraq and Syria during that period. And when you think of all those who've died and displaced, the one thing that stands out for me is the psychological toll on the people of the region. This New Year's Eve, I went with my wife to Amman and participated in a New Year's Eve party for young Syrian orphaned children. And many of those children arrived at the centre and burst into tears. It was the first time that they'd been able to leave the refugee camps for ages, and they didn't know what to expect. Many of them were given pencils and crayons to draw, but the images they drew were not what my children were drawing. They were of tanks, of bombs, of planes, and of conflict. Images no 6-year-old should have to experience, let alone adults. And when you look across the region, I fear that here in Europe and the United States, very much as Mehdi has said, I think people have really no comprehension about the scale and the size of what is happening. But these are not humanitarian crises alone, but deeply political ones with humanitarian consequences. Last year, Jack Straw, Richard Burden and I, Jack Straw, the former Foreign Secretary, and Richard Burden, who happens to be the Member of Parliament for a Birmingham constituency, we were in Jerusalem, and as it is now, it was then covered in snow in the worst storm since 1953. Jerusalem looked fantastic, splendid, but all we could think about were the poor Palestinians who had had their homes demolished the day before and the families we'd have visited, and also the Palestinian communities in the South Hebron Hills, where we had just been to, who had been forced out of their traditional homes into tented shacks. And how were they going to survive it? They weren't there by accident. There is a reason why 4 people have frozen to death in Gaza: the bombing of the power plant, the absence of fuel, the lack of shelter after the destruction of 18,000 homes. And there is mass starvation in Syria, but it's mass starvation as a weapon of war. CABU is a cross-party NGO, and it was set up in 1967 to address these issues by working with politicians and the media and our education system in this country. And we believe that far greater efforts need to be made to resolve these crises and not inflame them. I mean, how many more years does this Syria disaster have to continue before the international and the regional powers get serious about ending it? Gaza has now been blockaded for 7 years, and like the West Bank, occupied for over 47. So this is a key focus of our advocacy and parliamentary work, and it's clear that from October's House of Commons vote, 274 MPs voting in favour of Palestinian statehood, that the tide is turning, even if rather too late and rather too little. On Thursday, I'll be taking CARBU's 57th parliamentary delegation to the Middle East since 1997. This one to Palestine. And we do this as part of our work to push for an informed debate on the region, to see on the ground facts, not Fox News facts. And those facts on the ground are mostly concrete, the wall and the settlement. And here I'd like to pay tribute to our first keynote speaker tonight, one of CARBU's patrons, Sir Alan Duncan, for his courage in speaking out against this. And I commend to you all his speech to RUSI, the Royal United Services Institute, on this issue in October. Now, Alan will be joining us any moment now. I've just had a text message before coming up here. The debate in Parliament and the vote will be happening any second, and he promises he'll be running over to join us. But we were also truly honoured to have Prince Hassan of Jordan with us tonight. He's a man who's worked tirelessly for interfaith relations, the fight against extremism, and the madness, as he rightly describes it, of Daesh. On our CARBU delegation to Jordan that we did with the all-party Jordan group, led by Crispin Blunt, who is also with us tonight in November, His Majesty the King was adamant that it must be the Arab and Islamic world that led the fight against extremism, supported by allies in the West and not the other way round. That is absolutely right, and that is why we should listen to our friends in the region, and never more so after the dreadful events in Paris in the last few days. So, friends, please do enjoy your evening. My colleagues at CARBU, myself, board members who are here will all be happy to answer your many questions. And I look forward to the debate that we're about to have and the answers that are going to be given from our distinguished speakers now. Thank you.